Well, thank you everyone for coming out this afternoon. Mayor Murtaugh from Albert Lea and I have been to his home community and over in Mankato with some other mayors. We had Mayor Albrecht from New Ulm, Mayor Brady from Mankato, Mayor Strand from St. Peter, and Mayor Zelmer from North Mankato that joined us. Now Bruce is here with us from Cloquet to just really kind of reinforce the message that you've all heard before. But I think as even, with every passing year, the circumstances become even more acute. And that is the fact that cities have continued to be the brunt of the cuts that the state has made over the last several years. We have, as a result of that, had to make some significant cuts in city operations. We've also balanced those out with revenue increases. We have done a great deal to try to respond to the cuts that we have made in the city, or have received. In the city of St. Paul, cumulatively, we're $155 million down in local government aid since 2003. Between 2009 and 2010, we are down 127 positions in the city of St. Paul. Our rec center, just as one example, our rec programs have been cut by 43% in the city of St. Paul. Those are critical programs that allow us to provide after-school activities for our children and activities for our senior citizens, among other things. And our city attorney's budget has been reduced by 10%. If it was not for some federal funding, the police and fire department would be down significantly in the city of St. Paul as well, but because of some of the federal grants, we've been able to avoid cuts there. However, other cities have not been as fortunate. Other cities have had to reduce their public safety personnel. They've had to reduce their plowing, library services, a variety of things, and Mike is going to talk about that in just a little bit. We are now at the point where the city's ability to support and grow our economic base is really being threatened. Vital cities, healthy cities, are critical to being able to go out into the community and try to attract jobs. One of the things that we get to promote in this state is the education levels of our workforce. And part of that is the ability of cities to support what's happening in schools with out-of-school time programs, libraries, parks, etc. Those are things, the quality of life that we're able to sell, all of those things are critically important. Yet we know that the state is certainly, some of the options on the table are to either further reduce or potentially eliminate local government aid. I think that would be a disaster for cities across the state of Minnesota. It would be very, very difficult for us to sustain the quality of life that we have come to expect in this community, and it would certainly be difficult for us to sell our cities as a great place to come and do business, and we think that it threatens, quite frankly, the economic recovery in the state of Minnesota. At the very least, it's penny wise and pound foolish to further cut cities, and we would hope that the work that we have done with a coalition of mayors from across the state of Minnesota has gotten that message across, and we need to make sure that we continue to carry that message to the state capitol. One of the things noted in the paper today was that the state of Minnesota, Moody's cut its kind of forecast for their bond ratings from stable to negative. In the city of St. Paul, our bond rating went up because of the hard work that we have done of taking a long-term approach by balancing out costs, cutting with revenue increases, and really kind of looking at that. If you look at what Moody's had said, they criticized the state for kind of taking short-term approaches by not really balancing out cuts with revenue and not really looking at kind of a long-term stable picture and not always using one-time revenue sources for permanent expenditures. That is what, quite frankly, the opposite approach to what mayors across the state of Minnesota have done. We've tried to really be thoughtful, we've tried to be balanced, we've tried to take a long-term view, and we've tried to create some stability. We are asking the state to take an equally long-term view, an equally balanced approach, and we hope that they understand that the cuts that the cities have absorbed over the years cannot continue. It's not just St. Paul, it is cities across Minnesota. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Murtaugh to talk a little bit about not only what's happening in Albert Lea, but some of the information that we've gathered about what's happening in other communities.
Thank you, Mayor Coleman. Thank you for everybody for being here this afternoon. I'm glad to be here to help represent the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, especially the outstate cities that we are joining with metro cities like St. Paul to let you know what we have done to respond during this time of reduced budgets. The Coalition has given you a packet of information that contains the full survey results, and certainly they're available if you want more detailed information, but I'd like to just summarize what that survey has shown. It was given to 77 of our member cities, approximately 58 responded. Those cities range from about 3,000 population all the way up to a little over 100,000, so it's quite a variety, but the trends and the themes are the same, and that is that the results to the cuts of LGA are clear, that we've had to provide less service and raise property taxes in many cases, and the cuts, as Mayor Coleman noted, are eroding our ability to stay competitive, both of this as a state and cities competing with other cities within the state to be a good place to live, and trying to attract businesses and keep our families in our cities, and that is especially true in outstate Minnesota. So some of the key findings of the study are survey. In response to the LGA reductions, more cities cut expenditures than raised revenue in their 2010 budget. And in Albert Lee's case, that certainly is true. Our 2010 budget is a little over $1 million less in real dollars than 2009, and we did not increase our general fund levy. We chose to hold the line this year. Street maintenance across the board was hit hardest by the reductions. 69% of cities reduced their workforce, and Mayor Coleman mentioned St. Paul's down about 120 employees. Albert Lee, since 2008, we've gone from about 150 full-time employees to 137 presently. So we're down in real dollars and real staffing. 33% of cities reduced public safety personnel, resulting in a loss of 42 public safety positions. And the average levy increase was 5%. And 60% of cities increased or implemented new fees. And the other response, in addition to either reducing expenditures or increasing revenues as shown in the release or in the study, some have chosen to reduce their fund balance or spend their reserves and not being able to replenish them at this time. And of course, that's definitely not a sustainable action here in the next several years. So with that, I'd like to give just another very telling example of one thing that we've had to do in Albert Lea as a response, and while still trying to maintain some critical services or needed services, and that is our library. Up until this year, it had been open 6 days a week except Sunday. Beginning now in 2010, it is now closed Friday and Saturday. Now, if you're going to be closed 2 days a week, you might ask, some would think, well, why not be closed Monday? You know, museums are closed Monday, that kind of thing. Well, our staff knew that Monday was the day of the week that we have the most highest use of our computers in the library for public access and internet access, and that's because that's the day that people come in to file their unemployment claims and to do their unemployment job search and that kind of thing. So they knew they had to be open Monday, and if they were going to make a choice, they would be closed Friday and Saturday, and then have at least one weekend a day that they would be open. But anyway, I think that was just a really powerful statement when they said that's why they wanted, or what they wanted to set as a schedule, and it was because of the folks looking and filing for unemployment in this recession. So with that, I will turn it over to Mayor Algren from Cloquet, and thank you again.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Bruce Algren. I'm the mayor of Cloquet, and if for people that don't know, Cloquet is a town in northeastern Minnesota, about 18 miles away from Duluth, population 12,000. Since 2003, Cloquet has lost over $5 million in local government aid, and for a small city, that's an extremely large amount of money. Actually, for any city, that would be. The other thing that we've done is we've reduced our workforce. We haven't hired. We've combined positions as they retire. And now we're in the position where if we have any more, actually with or without the local government aid, that we'll end up having to lay off people for the first time ever. And in this society, it's really sad because the economy is not good in the first place, and most of the people that get laid off are the younger people with kids and children that supply your schools and those sorts of things. I think that one of the things that the coalition is talking about is knowing that we want to do our part, but we don't want to do more than we have to, because right now it's really sustaining your city for the core things that we're responsible to have for our citizens. If we are going to lose local government aid, the city of Cloquet would have to raise their personal property taxes 37%, which is not going to happen in today's economy and where our budgets are going. So local government aid is extremely important to all cities, and Cloquet is just one example of those. Thank you.
Questions?
On this page of the handout, it says that 40% of cities cut public safety programs. But I'm thinking back to what Governor Plenty has told us many times, and 48% cut park and rec programs and 39% cut pool hours. I am guessing Governor Plenty would say, well, why don't you cut more pool hours and more park and rec programs and fewer public safety programs?
I think what the cities have tried to do is really balance out what it takes to run a city. It is not, cities, public safety is job one. There's no question about that. Police officers and firefighters are the essential services, but that is not the only thing that makes a city a city. It is not the only reason why people choose to live in a community. And every cop that I've ever spoken to, every police officer on the street will tell you that engaging a child in a quality out-of-school time programming, engaging them at a rec center, giving them a place to go where they can swim or do any of those things are critically important to keeping them out of trouble and keeping them on the right path. Every rec center that I close in the city of St. Paul means that there are kids out there that instead of going to play basketball or be in an environment where there's somebody supervising them, they're out on the streets and then our cops are chasing them. Unless we have a balance of those programs, we will never have enough police officers on the street. And the governor has always said, and this is, I think, the point that I want to make, he says public safety is a priority. But then he cuts the funding to the people that provide public safety, and that's cities and counties across the state of Minnesota. When I asked him about that a year or two ago, he then changed his tune. He says, well, we're going to prioritize the public safety that the state provides, which is state troopers and prison guards. I'd like to keep kids from going to prison. I'd like to keep them on the right path, and that means that a smart city, a city that is attractive to businesses, has to have a balance of quality of life as well as public safety.
What are you proposing in the alternative?
Well, again, I go back, Eric, to a balanced approach to cuts, to consolidation, to revenue. But what has happened in the last several years is that those cuts have been pushed down onto the local level, and the kind of consolidations that you've seen, the reduction in workforce, the 127 positions that were down, we have not seen a kind of a parallel effort on a statewide level. And if you look specifically at the language of Moody's report that I read in the paper this morning, they said it was the lack of a balanced approach which is leading to a negative outlook, a negative forecast for the state of Minnesota, while at the same time, St. Paul is getting a positive. We've increased our rating from Moody's because we have taken a balanced approach. So this no taxes approach, this no looking at additional revenues, as well as the cut side, if it doesn't work. Every mayor that I have talked to across the state of Minnesota has looked at both sides of the equation, and at this point, we'd ask the state to do the same.
So do you want tax increases to offset cuts to LGA?
Well, taxes are going up, and this is the critical piece. Taxes have gone up across, property taxes, which are the most inequitable, the most difficult to swallow at a time, quite frankly, of an economic downturn. Think about a business. I've talked to a business owner out on West 7th. He pays $100,000 in property taxes. He's got big parcels, so it's, I think it's fair, but he doesn't necessarily agree with me. But the fact of the matter is, he said, look, my business has gone down substantially during this economic downturn. My property taxes haven't gone down. Any other tax that you would look at, revenue or corporate taxes or personal income taxes, adjust based on whether you're making money or not. And property taxes, which have gone up as the governor and the legislature have cut aid to cities, are the ones that don't adjust for how a person, an individual situation for a person or for a business.
So what state taxes should be adjusted?
I think that everything has to be on the table. Consumption taxes, looking at more stable revenue sources, I think that there are a lot of things that you can look at, but it's not. Let's lead with some of the kind of the structural changes that cities have done. When I've cut 43% out of my services, you know, that we want to see that balanced approach of, you know, where's the big idea? Where's the consolidation? Where's the different way of delivering services in the state? We've had to do that on a local level. We've had to kind of ask ourselves those hard questions, and then we've also had to balance it out with revenue increases.
So you're not proposing where the money should come from?
That, you know, my job is, you know, I do that at my local level because that's what I've been elected to do. I'm asking them to take a similar approach in the governor's office and in the state legislature. But what's happened is they've said, let's let the local levels of government do that. We don't want to have to do that.
Question for the greater Minnesota mayors. No offense, Mayor Coleman.
That's okay. No, that's why we're here all together.
Yeah. Specifically, gentlemen, in Alberley and Cloquet, and they're not going to eliminate LGA totally, but you probably have some sort of an idea of kind of what level or order of magnitude cuts lawmakers might have to make this time around, or the governor might have to make unilaterally again. For each of your communities, if those levels of LGA cuts were to happen again, what kind of reduction would you have to make in what areas?
Well, first, what our position has been as a coalition is that for 2010, we're asking that the LGA cut be held to the 2009 level. I'm correct in that. Just want to make sure I've got my years straight. So we're not asking to be not cut. We're saying we've been cut disproportionately, and it's really getting to the bone. Now, if we were cut further, in our case, as Mayor Coleman was talking about some of the amenities, like our city pool, we have cut hours, our city arena, you know, what would we do there? Raise fees, or close it, potentially. Our senior citizen center is the same sort of thing. It's something that doesn't cover itself in revenue, and yet it's something that adds to life in outstate Minnesota. And our civic theater, for instance, Performing Arts Center, we had to let go the part-time manager and custodian, and now that work is being covered by our Park and Rec department.
Do you have to have any public safety?
In fact, well, and that is going to be a real concern, because just this Monday night we did approve a method. I'll say that we had one officer in our police force that was on the had been given a notice of layoff. That's where we were at with our 2010 budget. Our Teamsters Union did agree to some. I don't want to say concessions because it's not under the contract, but they did come up with a memorandum of understanding with our staff that led to about $35,000 in savings through foregoing some holiday pay and those sorts of things, uniform allowance. And in doing that, the council did agree to match that out of our contingencies to save that one position. Fortunately for Albert Lea, we've been able to, even though we're down about 13 positions, we've been able to do it through attrition. No full-time employees to this point has been laid off, and so at least for 2010, and assuming nothing changes dramatically in the 2010 funding, we'll hopefully make it through without having to lay off somebody full-time.
Same question to the mayor of Cloquet.
No problem. Actually, we're kind of doing the same thing. Our library is being cut. Unfortunately, our library is probably as busy as it's ever been with the economy, because the people, as they're cutting out things that they don't need on a daily basis, go to the library to use the computers, to use the internet, read the local newspapers, and apply for jobs online and anything they can get. And our elderly especially are hit dramatically. One of the things that we've done is we're shortening the hours. We're not laying people off as they retire. There's a person leaving our library that's not going to be replaced. And unfortunately, I think libraries get hit disproportionately than the other departments in the city, because the people that don't see the library every day. We also, as regional centers, 50% of the library use in Cloquet is not by the citizens of Cloquet, it's outside the citizens of Cloquet. So we provide for those people, senior centers and stuff like that. Last year, the city of Cloquet did not pave or upgrade any roads in the city. Now, you can say, well, we saved some money in that regard, but eventually those roads are going to deteriorate, so you're going to have to make up for the bad roads in the future. Those are most difficult. Like I said earlier, we are, for the first time ever, looking at a layoff. We asked every department to give us a layoff list of who they could lay off in their department, who would go first. And of course, most of them are union, so you'd go through those entry-level people, and those are the youngest people. So those are the things that we're looking at. Public safety is not off the table, and it's really sad to say that it's not off the table as far as layoffs go. But what you're looking at is you're looking at public safety being number one. Well, if your house is on fire, I think the fire department is number one. And if you're looking at the winter, when you get 27 inches of heavy wet snow, the highway department is number one in their minds because they have to get from point A to point B. So, all this city essential services are really essential to somebody at some given time. And I think everyone would agree that fire and police are the number one priority in most cities. There's a lot of other priorities that are going to be cut. So.
How about street maintenance? That's listed as the number one thing cut. Does that mean fewer potholes get filled in the spring? What's the impact for people on the street?
I think that's exactly right, which is, potholes aren't getting repaired as quickly. It could be snow plowing. It depends on how people categorize it. So instead of plowing after 3 inches, you're plowing after 4 inches, or you're not going out and doing some cleanup. And think about the challenge of this last winter. When you got 10 inches of snow and then rain and then froze. Our crews have been out almost nonstop since Christmas, trying to clean up, and then you get more snow, and now it's supposed to snow again this weekend. These are not non-essential services. And you can say, well, we'll cut it back. I can guarantee you that the people that have to answer those phones when somebody's car gets stuck or they can't get their children to school or to an out-of-school time program, that, as Bruce said, it's an essential service when you need it to get somewhere.
As Bill said, it doesn't sound like the governor's going to suggest doing away with LGA, but he's told us several times now that too many cities depend too much on it, that it somehow needs to go back to the cities that have the lowest property wealth need the help. Is there a way that this can be settled between the cities and the governor?
Well, there has been an effort to just at least kind of have a long-term discussion about what LGA looks like, how do we kind of equalize it, how do we make sure that cities get the resources that we need. It wasn't solely about the lowest property tax, poor, or however you want to describe it, kind of tax capacity poor maybe cities. It was about regional centers. It was about people that had excess burden. It was about, there was a lot of reasons. And if you go back to the beginning of local government aid, it was to try to equalize things. It was try to equalize sales taxes. It was try to equalize services. The level of, the quality of life you have in the state of Minnesota shouldn't be so dependent upon the zip code that you live in. It was trying to equalize those things. So you can, it's just been the idea that you can just eliminate it and let everybody fend for themselves or whatever. It just doesn't work that way. And it's important to a city like Albert Lea or Cloquet, or there are some cities that maybe get $1,500 a year in local government aid, but that might be the difference between having an officer or not having an officer, or having a snowplow or not. We've heard this from others. That's what I'm going to use to replace the one computer that I have in City Hall. So there are a lot of different kind of levels that we're at, but it is a critical partnership at the end of the day between the state of Minnesota and communities across it. Cities are the economic engine for the state. That is where jobs are created. It is where commerce takes place. So just to say, well, cities are on your own, is to ignore the fact that that's where things are happening in the state of Minnesota.
But the question was whether you can really do something, whether the cities and governor can get together. Well, what are you proposing to solve this problem ongoing? We've been hearing about this for years. So what happens? What are you going to do other than say, keep sending us the money?
Well, the city, first of all, the city, the local government aid was a very stable revenue source until about 2003. It was predictable. It was you knew it was going to be there, and then it became kind of a political hot potato under this governor, and all of a sudden, the volatility falls to the cities. So, we'd like to get back to this understanding. This is not welfare from the state to cities. This is a partnership where we provide needed services across the state of Minnesota. Is there room for compromise? There certainly is on our part, but it means that you have to take a balanced approach and not just have these cuts fall to the cities.
I think one of the things that you're looking at with the cities that we've taken an unfair burden of the cutting of the local government aid. And I think we're just asking for fairness where K-12 is maybe have to take some cuts, the counties have to take some cuts, and other departments, instead of just putting the burden mostly on the cities, which it might look like we have lots of money in our books because we have enterprise funds, but the problem is that those funds are earmarked for roads and bridges and maintenance that you have to have. And if you don't replace a squad car, like it's just like a street. If you don't fix a street or replace a squad car, eventually you're going to have to replace those squad cars. So somewhere down the line, you're going to have to have that money there for them. And replacing squad cars 1 to 2 a year is something totally different than doing 4 or 5.
Does the coalition or the mayors have a stance on the legislation unveiled this morning at a news conference that would limit the governor's unallotting authority and presumably limit the amount of LGA that could be unallotted unilaterally?
I don't know that there's a coalition position.
How about a mayor position?
Well, the city of St. Paul has signed on the amicus brief, and just to be clear, that is not about the city undoing the cuts to local government aid that occurred, but it is about the fundamental kind of constitutional balance of power in the state of Minnesota between the legislature and the governor's office. We think it's important for predictability and stability. We think that we believe that Judge Guerin's ruling in Ramsey County was a correct one, and so we have signed on to support the appeal on that case on behalf of the plaintiffs that sued the state. So that's the St. Paul position. There is no coalition position. I think individual mayors have done different things. Specifically, did not decide to file suit relative to the issue of local government aid. What we have signed on to is the brief of the 6 plaintiffs in this particular case, because we don't want it to be just about local government aid. This is a fundamental question of balance of power in the state of Minnesota. So we are not doing this because we think it's going to lead to a restoration of local government aid. We're doing it because we think it's just simply good governance.
Did LGA get your attention, though?
I think that how the governor used the unallotment process got my attention.
Is there anything, other than getting the message out, is there anything you would suggest to make LGA a less attractive source for cuts for the governors in the future? Legislation, maybe? Is there anything you can...
I think it's a fundamental principle of understanding the relationship and understanding that cities are not just, they're not just recipients of some largesse from the state of Minnesota. They're the economic engines for the state. And they are the people that provide public safety across the state of Minnesota. And they are the people that provide services so that someone that has been laid off can go to a library and find a computer and apply for a job. I would ask everyone to step back and really look at the kind of community we're trying to create, the kind of state we're trying to create. I don't think that there's a piece of legislation that can guarantee anybody who's going to receive local government aid or anything else in the future, but we do think it's fundamentally important for people to understand what cities are all about.
And if I could follow up on that and kind of going back to what Don asked earlier about the dependents, I know as a city, Albert Lea is struggling or trying to reduce our dependence on LGA, and we don't want to realize that it's not maybe going to always be there. Probably right now or for 2010, 34% of our revenue will be comprised of LGA. In the early, probably in the 2003, 2004 range, it was closer to 60%. So we have dramatically reduced our dependence. Our taxes have gone up, property taxes have gone up double in that time period. Now, like I say, from 2009 to 2010, we chose not to raise our general fund levy. Ironically, even after cutting $1 million, we did have a slight increase because of our debt service levy. And we're trying to do that responsibly as well, so that doesn't get out of hand. But I think maybe that's the key, that we have cut dramatically. We're reducing our dependence, but It's been, as Mayor Algren mentioned, it has been disproportional to this point, and we just want to catch our breaths, I think. And, but we do feel we have done our share.
Mayor Algren, can you spell your last name for us?
Algren, A-H-L-G-R-E-N.
Thank you.
Great last question. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.